Ha Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Bhatta Juga Shri Jiva Prabhu Lokhanatha Rup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Bhatta. One main branch, and Advaita Acharya is the other main branch. So he is the second branch of the eternal Chaitanya tree. So Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami is offering his obeisances to Advaita Acharya and to his followers who form the sub-branches. So there are many sub-branches, but it is impossible to mention them all. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the tree himself, but he is also the gardener. He poured the water of his mercy on the tree, and all the branches and sub-branches grew day after day. So the verse is Dine Dine, which means day after day. The fruits that grew on these branches were fruits of love of Godhead, and they flooded the entire world with love of Krishna because these fruits were so large. So as the tree was watered more and more, the branches and sub-branches spread lavishly, and the tree grew full with fruits and flowers. So this brings us to verse 8, that at first the followers of Advaita Acharya, they shared a single opinion, but later they followed two different opinions as ordained by providence. So before I get into the purport of this verse, this tree that is being talked about is describing the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and is describing how all the different branches of these trees are all the different devotees that help Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spread the movement all over the world. And that these branches and sub-branches that are all being mentioned, they are all devotees under whom many other devotees have taken shelter and joined the movement. And this is the Chaitanya tree which is still growing. So the fruit of this tree is love of Godhead. And this love of Godhead is something that the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are distributing in this world. And the practical ways in which we are distributing this love of Godhead, which is making this tree become bigger and lavish, is by sharing prasadam, distributing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, letting people hear it and asking them to join in, and also by engaging people by engaging their Lakshmi, by engaging their time, by engaging their intelligence, so by engaging people in service. So this is how love of Godhead is spread. So purport of verse 8, the words Devera Karana indicate that by dint of providence or by God's will, the followers of Advaita Acharya divided themselves into two parties. Such disagreement among the disciples of one Acharya is also found among the members of the Gaudiya Math. In the beginning, during the presence of Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrakacharya Astotra Sata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, all the disciples worked in agreement, but just after his disappearance, they disagreed. One party strictly followed the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but another group created their own concoction about executing his desires. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at the time of his departure, requested all his disciples to form a governing body and conduct missionary activities cooperatively. He did not instruct a particular man to become the next Acharya. But just after his passing away, his leading secretaries made plans without authority to occupy the post of Acharya, and they split into two factions over who the next Acharya would be. Consequently, both factions were asar, or useless, because they had no authority, having disobeyed the order of the spiritual master. Despite the spiritual master's order to form a governing body and execute the missionary activities of the Gaudiya Math, the two unauthorized factions began litigation that is still going on after 40 years with no decision. Therefore, we do not belong to any faction, but because the two parties, busy dividing the material assets of the Gaudiya Math institution, stopped the preaching work, we took up the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhakti Vinod Thakur to preach the cult of Caitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world, under the protection of all the predecessor acharyas. And we find that our humble attempt has been successful. We followed the principles especially explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita verse, Vyas Vyasatmika Buddhir Ekaha Kuru Nandanaha. According to this instruction of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it is the duty of a disciple to follow strictly the orders of his spiritual master. The secret of success in advancement in spiritual life is the firm faith of the disciple in the orders of his spiritual master. The Vedas confirm this. Yashya deve para bhaktir yatha deva tatha gurau tasyaite kathatitha hi artha prakashante mahatmanaha. To one who has staunch faith in the words of the spiritual master and the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the secret of success in Vedic knowledge is revealed. The Krishna consciousness movement is being propagated according to this principle, and therefore our preaching work is going on successfully, in spite of the many impediments offered by the antagonistic demons, because we are getting positive help from our previous acharyas. One must judge every action by its result. The members of the self-appointed acharya's party who occupied the property of the Gaudiya Math are satisfied, but they could make no progress in preaching. Therefore, by the results of their actions, one should know that they are asar, or useless. Whereas the success of the ISKCON party, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which strictly follows Guru and Gauranga, is increasing daily all over the world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to print as many books as possible and distribute them all over the world. We have tried our best in this connection, and we are getting results beyond our expectations. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this purport is talking about Advaita Acharya's followers having initially one opinion, one mentality, but later, by the will of Krishna, the followers of Advaita Acharya divided into two parties. So then, going back, coming to recent times, Prabhupada in this purport has moved to recent times, to what happened when his spiritual master left this planet. And at that time, as you might know, there was a really big temple in Calcutta, which was like the headquarters of the Gaudiya Math. So this temple in Calcutta is basically what was being fought over, and what the litigation started over. So just after his disappearance, actually Prabhupada had been warned by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. Prabhupada had been warned that the fire from inside the math will destroy the math. Like this he was told. So Prabhupada had also been given the instruction on the banks of Radhakund that if you ever get money, print books. So, and also that you might even need to sell the marble from the temple but print books. So this is also mentioned in this purport towards the end, that so just after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada's spiritual master, left this planet, unfortunately his followers disagreed, and one party followed the instructions of their guru, but another group created their own concoction about what his instructions were. And even though he had requested that there be a governing body, just like we have now in ISKCON, a governing body commission, he had requested this. This didn't happen. What happened instead is that somebody, even though he had not instructed any one particular person to become the next guru, but just after his passing away, the leading secretaries made plans without his authority to become acharya. And therefore there was a division about who the next acharya would be. So Prabhupada says here that therefore, consequently, both these parties are useless. And he calls them useless at least twice in this purport. So, asar, this word asar is used there in that first verse, sar asar. So, asar means useless. So, and that the litigation, that court case from that time was still going on after 40 years with no decision being made. I don't know whether it's still going on now, but it was really messy. And therefore, right from the beginning, what Prabhupada did, he actually, from where he was living, he started translating the Bhagavad Gita, and he started giving classes right from over there. And he just started translating and giving classes on his own. And then, knowing the instruction his guru had given him, he moved to the Western world. He came to the Western world after great difficulty, as we know. So despite, so he is saying, Prabhupada is telling us really clearly that although the spiritual master, although my guru had given this instruction to form a governing body commission and to do preaching, these two groups began litigation and they have not been preaching. So that's why ISKCON, Prabhupada formed ISKCON, he founded ISKCON. And therefore he said, we don't belong to any party. Because these two parties, even though Prabhupada, is the rightful heir, he could have inherited and become the acharya, but because of all the fighting, he is the acharya, the preeminent acharya, but not of the Gaudiya Math. He formed ISKCON. So, and this ISKCON is continuing all the preaching work very successfully, as Prabhupada says. So he said that these two parties, they are busy dividing the material assets of the Gaudiya Math, and therefore all the preaching has stopped because of infighting. But ISKCON, we took up the mission, which is, Prabhupada is being humble, we meaning him. He took up the mission. He took up this mission all on his own, and he came to the Western world, and therefore there are temples like this all over the world. So, and he is saying that this is under the protection of all the previous acharyas, that our humble attempt has been successful. Now, this is really, really important what Prabhupada says next in this purport, which is that we followed the principles especially explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is from the Bhagavad Gita verse, Vyas Pasatmika Buddhir Ekaha Kuru Nandana Bahu Shakahi Anantastha Buddhayo Avyavasinam. So this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, actually it also happens to be the favorite verse of my spiritual master, and he quotes this many times. So this verse is basically saying that the intelligence of one that one whose intelligence is one-pointed is the true intelligent person. And the intelligence of those that are spread out over many different things is not so intelligent. So that we need to have single-pointed, one-pointed, like a focus. And this focus of our intelligence should be focused on this. And this focus is following the instructions strictly, following the orders strictly of the spiritual master. Now, this is actually the biggest open secret that is there in the path of bhakti. That only really by following the instructions strictly of the spiritual master, this is like one of the principal things, one of the main things, that when we follow instructions very strictly of our spiritual master, then all success is ours. So this is what Prabhupada is saying. Just because I did this, I followed my Guru's instruction. This instruction was given to Prabhupada at the very first meeting, that go and preach in the Western world. So Prabhupada followed that. He also followed the instruction of printing books. And many other instructions of his spiritual master Prabhupada followed. So because he just had complete firm faith, like firm faith. Firm faith means, the Shraddha means, firm faith means like it doesn't flinch, unflinching faith. That, if your arm is out there and somebody's coming to slap it, you don't flinch away. It's like that. So it's like, that arm won't actually slap you, so you can just keep it steady over there. Don't flinch. So this is what unflinching means. And to have this kind of faith in Guru, in the instruction of the Guru, and then to follow out this order, this is what makes a disciple successful. And this is why Prabhupada is saying that I used, now he is not saying I did, but he's saying we. But we know that Prabhupada single-handedly started this movement, and very soon after Mukunda Maharaj joined him and started preaching all over the world. So that this principle of following the instruction of the spiritual master is of utmost importance. And this is the secret of success in advancement in spiritual life, that this firm faith needs to be there. So then Prabhupada quotes this verse, Yasya Deve Para Bhaktir, that one who has firm faith in the words of the spiritual master and the words of Krishna, then the secret of success in Vedic knowledge is revealed. So this firm faith is needed. So where does this faith come from? This faith comes from the heart of a devotee. This faith comes from associating with devotees who have faith. This faith comes from following the regulative principles and seeing the benefit of it. So by association, this faith comes. So sometimes the example is used that when we read magazines and newspaper articles, we believe what's written in them. Quite often we just kind of blindly believe it. So how come we don't have the same faith in the words of the scriptures? Sometimes this example is used in preaching in particular. But for those who have faith in the words of the scriptures and the words of the Guru, then the success of spiritual life is there. That's confirmed Vedically. So when you say something and there's a sound, it's Vedic confirmation. So this movement is being spread according to this principle. Now one important thing to say is, it's not that Prabhupada didn't have faith. He had firm faith. However, we also know that Prabhupada went to Advaita Acharya's house in Mayapur the day before he left to go to America. And here he was praying and he was crying. And the pujari came out and he said, "Why are you crying?" And Prabhupada said that it's because my spiritual master has given me a great task and I don't know whether I'll be able to do it. So here we see this mood of begging for mercy and being dependent on the mercy of devotees and Krishna. And we know that this is one of the principles of surrender. So one of the 6 principles of surrender, to completely depend on the mercy of devotees and the spiritual master. So Prabhupada, it's not that Prabhupada was lacking faith or anything. He was far from it. He had full faith, but he was begging for mercy. He knew that with this mercy, everything is possible. And he is saying in this purport that it is the blessing of the predecessor acharyas that we find our humble attempt has been successful. And also, another important principle he is explaining. Also, actually, before I move on, so going back to the order of the spiritual master, the instruction of the spiritual master, and I've said this before in the last class I gave on the Caitanya Caritamrita too. So the order of the spiritual master, when the Guru gives an instruction, the ability to carry out that instruction, the strength to carry out that instruction is inbuilt in that instruction. Meaning to say, he has given you that instruction, he or she has given you that instruction because they know you can do it. And that all the mercy and all the strength and tolerance and all the opportunities will come to carry out that instruction. So this is the faith a disciple must have. That mercy to carry out this instruction is inbuilt in that instruction, and it will happen. So then, the other principle which is really important that Prabhupada explains is that this is one of the principles of spiritual life, that we must judge every action by its result. So what's the result of it? Is it successful or not? So when the result is there, then we can say, oh, that is successful and that isn't successful. So what he is saying that this Krishna consciousness movement is being spread all over the world successfully, in spite of many, many obstacles. And we are still getting positive help. In spite of many obstacles, it is being spread all over the world. And this, again, he says, is because of the help from our previous acharyas. So he's saying, judge a tree by its fruit. So that the result of this, of Prabhupada coming to the Western world and spreading this Krishna consciousness movement, and how successful it is, that this is the true evidence of him doing the right thing. So one must judge every action by its result. This is another principle of spiritual life. And he's saying further that the people who are fighting in the Gaudiya Math, they have received the property, the material assets, but they haven't made any success in preaching. They haven't been successful in preaching. Therefore, by the result of their actions, one should know that they are useless. Whereas ISKCON, who strictly follows Guru and Gauranga, is increasing daily all over the world. And then he's saying about the instruction of his spiritual master to print as many books as possible and to distribute them all over the world. Now Prabhupada is saying, we have tried our best in this connection and we are getting results beyond our expectations. So it's really nice to hear recent history, what's happening like now, what happened, and for Prabhupada to reveal his heart like this to all of us. It's very nice that we hear straight from Prabhupada what actually happened, because people who join ISKCON, they might hear Gaudiya Math and this and that, and not really know exactly what the matter is. So it's of no not a little significance. It's actually really significant that Prabhupada has mentioned this thing in the purport of the Caitanya Caritamrita. We know that Prabhupada said, I have left my ecstasies in my purports. And this is one way of directly associating with Prabhupada. So, in this last line of this purport, Prabhupada is saying that to print and distribute books all over the world, we have tried our best. and we are getting results beyond our expectations. So this Caitanya Caritamrita book, it was completed, the translation of this book was completed by Prabhupada yesterday on Rama Ekadashi. So on the date, on the occasion of Rama Ekadashi, Prabhupada had actually finished translating the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita at the Hare Krishna land, Juhu, Bombay. So we know that Prabhupada has been very successful and that the success hasn't stopped, that it is going on, and that he is present in his words, and that by following his instruction, which are his words, his Vani, we can achieve success. So what we have read and heard straight from the Bhagavad Gita about Ekaha Kuru Nandanaha, having single pointed attention on the order of the spiritual master, this is what Prabhupada is revealing to us, that only by doing this with firm faith, following the order of his Guru, he has achieved success. Now it is up to us to do the same thing. So by following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, which there are many instructions, by following these instructions strictly and with faith, we can also achieve full success in our spiritual lives. So, and just linking back to this whole 8 verses, so Advaita Acharya's followers divided into 2, and one of those groups are the real followers, and this will be explained later in the upcoming verses. And one of the groups weren't following strictly. They didn't follow the instructions of Advaita Acharya strictly. So those who, it's kind of like a power connection, like an electricity connection. So those who follow strictly, they get all the mercy because they are connected. It's like, an electric current that flows straight from Krishna all the way, through the previous acharyas, through Prabhupada, to the spiritual master, to us. So this electric current just flows all the way like this. And then this only happens if we follow the instructions of the Guru. So those who don't follow, they're like a plug that hasn't been plugged in the right place. So the current is broken, it doesn't really flow properly. And they are called asar, useless, because they haven't become effective instruments in spreading Krishna consciousness. So I will stop here. If anybody would like to say something, further points for discussion, or if there are any questions, I will try to answer them.
I'd just like to thank you for saying how the ability to follow the instruction is inbuilt in the instruction. That was really good to hear.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for that. Yeah, I wish I could say more about it. But basically, we see that when the acharyas give an instruction, then acharyas are very heavy, like guru means heavy. So they don't just do it like, flippantly. It's taken, the disciples' psychophysical nature is taken into account, and sometimes they might say it without thinking, but that's Krishna acting through them because they are a transparent via medium. So Prabhupada, when he, like when he said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, go to China and preach then, just like that, like so quickly like that. So you can see that Krishna is acting through Prabhupada and just, making him say these things. And that through, we can understand actually this principle more by seeing the example of the disciples of Prabhupada. So disciples of Prabhupada, like for example, Narayani Prabhu, for example, they've been given different instructions, and to us when we hear it, it's like, oh, it's just something else. It's just so sort of under the radar, that it wouldn't really stick out. But these disciples have taken those instructions as their life and soul, and they've become successful. So Narayani Pravi, she was given the instruction to, if I remember correctly, it was something about reading and writing, something about that. And one time Prabhupada also said that each verse of the Bhagavatam should have an accompanying picture, should have an accompanying poem and picture. So that's what Narayani Prabhi has done. She's actually made that her life's work, and each verse of the Bhagavatam has now, it's all over there now, like it's there, it's out and it's about. Each verse of the Bhagavatam has a picture and it's got a poem, and it's really digestible because it's little pieces. So this, with the order of the Guru, does come that strength and tolerance and faith. We just then need to figure out how to do it, and then start doing that. Okay. So I guess it's prasadam time, unless anyone else has anything else to say. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Advaita Acharya ki jai.